The battle for control of the U.S. Senate continues in Georgia with less than 2 weeks to go until that runoff election.
But already 2 million Georgians have cast their ballots as Democrats Jon Ossoff and Raphael Warnock raised more than $200 million in the last 2 months.
That's right. So what do Republicans need to do to make sure they keep the Senate? Here to break it down for us is former White House Communications Director and Senior Advisor to the Georgia GOP, Alyssa Farah. Alyssa, Merry Christmas. Welcome to the show. 2 million people have already voted. What does that tell you for the Republicans' prospects in that race? Is that a good sign or a bad sign?
Well, good morning, and thanks so much for having me. Listen, it tracks with what we saw on Election Day, but what I will say is this. Republicans have a much more sophisticated ground game in Georgia. Now, that money figure that you mentioned that the Democrats have raised, that is Hollywood money. That is West Coast and East Coast money pouring into Georgia to try to rebuild the state to make it look much more like California and New York City than Georgia. This should be a sign to voters. Get out if you want to control your state. If you want Georgia to be in control of it, not Hollywood elites, you've got to get out and vote. But from the Republican perspective, we're feeling good. We've got momentum on our side. And I would say this, the most important issue to voters is who are best positioned to rebuild our economy after COVID. And that's easily Kelly Loeffler and Senator Perdue.
Alyssa, I have to tell you, if you say it sounds like it's tracking Election Day, that's going to make a lot of Americans nervous because we know how Georgia went. And there have been, of course, questions all throughout about the integrity of the ballot box in Georgia. That brings me to this. A Georgia judge throwing out a lawsuit brought by the Georgia GOP that it sought to limit absentee ballot drop box hours. Could they be limited to the same hours as the regular ballot box, the regular drop off? But the judge ruled they'll be open. The ballot drop off boxes will be open 24 hours a day with video surveillance. What should we make of that?
So a couple of things. The Georgia Republican Party, as well as the Republican Party nationally, have really been standing up to try to push against voter fraud and make sure that we have integrity in our elections. This is going to be a state-by-state issue, and we're going to see some wins and we're going to see some losses. But what I can say on this, the numbers tracking with Election Day, voting in advance has tended to skew Democrat. On Election Day, it tends to skew to Republican voters turning out. And we're anticipating huge turnout for Senator Perdue and for Senator Loeffler. So we're feeling optimistic about where we are.
All right, we have to leave it right there, Alyssa. I would also note that the Secretary of State is now calling to end absentee voting without justification. A lot of us asking, where was that in November? But good luck down there, Alyssa Farah. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Alyssa.